law enforcement.
Now I want to ask you about petitions when you get ready here.
Okay, I'll get to that, yeah, in just a minute. One of the factors that you guys are looking at is school impact, and there's a letter that was in the, it's already been in the file, but I want to go ahead and pass it around there, let you guys look at it. From a school administrator located in Jonesboro, and if I could read it quickly here, because there's not been much talk about school. It says, "Dear Mr. Moore, members of the board, I'm a public school administrator and certified science teacher working in Craighead County, Arkansas School District. I've been a health and science professional educator for more than 30 years, currently supervise the federal Safe and Drug-Free Schools program guidelines for our district. I also serve the school representatives of the with school representatives of the 7 other Craighead County public school districts as a board member of Arkansas for Drug-Free Youth of Craighead County. In these community educational roles, I've been supported by parents, businesses, churches, and civic organizations alike to present the truth about the use of alcoholic beverages, its effects on the human body, and the societal costs it can exact on the community. The most devastating family and community costs are lives lost in alcohol-related accidents. As classroom professionals, we teach our children don't drink and drive, and when reinforced by the vast majority of our county adults who practice don't drink and drive, it provides a proven correct standard for a safer Craighead County community, providing establishments without overnight lodging on site, the authority to allow alcoholic beverage consumption, thus forcing consumers who drink there to drive afterward is counter to the very heart of our educational message, don't drink and drive. My Jonesboro school community, as well as 7 other Craighead County school communities, simply do not believe that any citizen's potential financial gain or presumed elevation of culinary status derived from alcohol sales for public consumption is valued above the risk it directly poses to the health and safety of our citizens and their children. This fact has been validated by the democratic vote of our citizens. I want to thank Mr. Robert Moore for his initial no against the recent request for private club alcohol sales permits and owners. Moving on now, as an educator, I appreciate the validation of the educational efforts by classroom teachers, school counselors, social workers, moms, and dads to secure the safest lifestyle for our children and youth. I urge the full board to continue opposing any further appeals for granting these private clubs alcohol sales permits in our school community. So there's evidence for school. I guess that's number 5.
Yes, that's number 5.
And lastly, we've talked, or next to lastly, we've talked a little bit about law enforcement officials, public officials. One thing I just want to just kind of briefly point out is that you've received objections in writing in the file.
Just a second, Jay, we got to change tapes. Okay, where's that one again?
Okay. This has to do with factor number 6. You've received objections in writing from law enforcement and public officials. And let me list them for you. Brent Davis, prosecuting attorney. Floyd Johnson, chief of police, who's here today. Jack McCann, sheriff. Dale Haas, county judge. Kenneth Walker, who is Bay Police, chief of police. Quillen Vincent, who's the mayor of Bay. Mary Suter, who's a Craighead County Court member, District 9. Delane Hogan, member of Craighead County Quorum Court. Did I say District Court?
No, he said
I said
quorum.
Quorum. Okay. JP District 8. And the evidence in her letter indicated, and there's some testimony to this, that 10 of the 12 Quorum Court members opposed this, although I think there's some indication maybe they didn't do it on record or something to that effect. And then lastly, Billy Gibson, who's a state representative, and received, he said, 500 letters from all over about this. So you have 9 elected public officials, both from this area and then there's 2, I think, from the adjacent city there. Both their letters said they share a common city limit. 9 public officials that have gone out of their way really to let you know that they're opposed to this. On the counter side, there have been no public officials, publicly elected officials, who have sent a letter or have otherwise communicated their support for this. So on that factor, it's 100% achieved. I want to just bring out that point. Now, lastly, the opposition or support from adjacent property owners, nearby area residents. You've heard from the support side. When I looked at the file last week, there was only 26 names and letters. Obviously, there's been some more presented today. The opposition I noted that there, and that's what you were gonna ask me about,
Yeah.
Ron, you wanna?
Well, I'd like you to help me, I've already mentioned this. I know we had a lot of petitions presented today, kind of like that big box you dropped on us from Josie's at the last minute in the last hearing. But the petition, I'd like to read this to you, and there may be some of you good folks out in the audience that have signed this petition, and I'd like you to help me and help the board maybe understand this. This is petition. We, the residents living in Jonesboro and or Craighead County, have expressed opposition to Piero's receiving a private club permit for Piero's at 310 South Main to serve alcohol beverages. I'm having a little bit of trouble with, everybody that signed this, is this strictly, and maybe somebody out there can help me, and if you haven't been sworn in, I'll swear you in, is your opposition simply to this place serving alcohol beverages? Is it just exactly what this petition to me seems like? It doesn't, to me, I need to understand, I vote a lot of things up here and what's in my heart. Is it that you don't want any more alcohol in the city of Jonesboro and Craighead County? Do you not want any more at Piero's, or kind of, what are we talking about here? Maybe you can help me.
I can answer that, sir. I'm Brother Stacy.
Brother Stacy, have you been sworn in?
He actually
Been
was.
sworn in.
Okay, fine.
Pastor North Main
And
Baptist
I
Church.
think you've been with us before.
Yes, sir.
Brother Stacy.
Certainly have.
Help me out with this a little bit and help our board here.
Well, those people are in opposition to it. They're in opposition to Piero's because of traffic concerns that, we've shared, and they're afraid that it's already been stated that this is going to open a floodgate, and, if they get it, then other people are going to get it. And these people, the bottom line is that they feel that the legislature has passed this law to circumvent.
Which I can't do. We can't do anything about that.
We can't do anything about that. But the bottom line
Anything
is,
about it.
the bottom line is that no, sir, they don't want any more alcohol, any shape, form, or fashion in Craighead County, whether it's Piero's or anywhere else.
Okay, and I'm assuming that these were gathered up based on, I asked them how they got their petitions, and I'm asking the same thing.
These were gathered from many of our church people that took them and went out and
Door to
had them,
door.
and then many of them were gathered, in the church, itself,
Okay.
from our people.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Sorry.
Well, no, I was just, I'm through. Thank you. I appreciate.
Can I address that?
Sure,
Just-
Mr.
just
Shell.
to stay with that subject.
Yeah,
for a
you
minute. I've gone through a learning curve the last.
We're gonna
few
get you.
months.
We're gonna get you a coffee.
Okay. And you all deal with this on a regular basis. But my observation is from the common man out there doing his thing, living his life, they don't understand the difference between Dry County and public, private club and that sort of thing. You hear a lot
I
of
firmly
that.
believe that.
And so I think to impute to those people that, that you're gonna require them to understand that, I don't think you are.
No, I'm
But
just asking
I'm just trying to
what's in
address it.
people's
I
heart
think these
here.
people are saying, if it's private club, if it's wet, if it's dry, whatever it is, our intent in voting this down, and if we could do more, we would, is to keep alcohol from being sold in our city, in our premises.
right.
I think, just to boil it down, even though the legislature has created a carve-out, they created an exception, and I think all these people, if they really understood it, would say, well, the legislature can do that, and then our approach is to go to the legislature if we want that change. I think if we explained it to them, they would understand that.
That is absolutely. Bobby and I talk about that all the time.
But I think most people don't understand or don't take the time to attack that. What they've got is somebody applies. They don't want it here. They generally just, and all they can do, I mean, you can have people show up here, you can hire a lawyer to come and speak for you, and all, but they can sign a letter, they can sign a petition and say, we've got 12 of these here. These may be nice people. These may be, but our city's doing great. We're developing, we're growing, we've got a downtown commission that is doing well. We just don't think
I want to
alcohol.
save some of this for the closing.
I need to say something. Yeah, but I think that's boiling down to where it is.
Gentlemen, if I could say
One
something.
more time, one more comment.
You know, I guess in reality, I come from perhaps an alcoholic family. My father was an alcoholic. I have two brothers that were alcoholics. Had a sister that was an alcoholic, took her own life. As a minister, I have dealt with people that have had problems with alcohol, you know, basically you might say all of my life. And so, you know, I'm against it, you know. I have moral convictions against it because I've seen the harm, you know, that it does to people, you know. But another thing I wanted to say was I don't know who these people were that did the survey of downtown. I've been in Jonesboro 10 years. I've lived in wet counties all of my life. I've never lived in a nice place, Craighead County, Jonesboro, Arkansas. But I was going to say that I drive through Main Street all the time, 3, 4, 5 times a day. Our church is north of there. I make the hospital visits, everything's nothing north of town. You have to go through, you know, to get to somewhere. And it's always a traffic problem. The parking is parallel, people pulling out, stopping, you know, dumpsters in the street from construction going on. And I dare say that, you know, this needs to be one of your major considerations, that it is traffic congestion there, regardless of who did the survey. You know,
Well, we've heard that from a couple of different.
there is a big problem there. And I feel that if this permit is granted, it's not going to help it, it's just going to add to it. It's going to take a bad situation that exists already and make it much worse. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I appreciate you helping kind of clarify a little bit on the petitions. Michelle, what else?
Okay, about to wrap up here.
All
The last is opposition from area residents. And in this one, you've seen a lot of petitions. I have some more here.
Okay.
Similar to what
Kinda like you
you
dropped
got
in at the
there,
last
kind of
minute,
like the
too.
same thing. Similar
Okay.
type of petition. We
We'll-
got a copy
we'll
there.
take
if you
them
want, Randy.
Similarly compelling intro.
Similarly
Similarly.
dramatic.
Dramatic.
There are a total here.
Is there anything different on the
They
top?
likewise express opposition.
Okay.
696 names in this one, 703 names in this one. So just adding up, there was 136 letters in the file. My count on your file that you already had was 1,281. Add all those up, and I show 2,816 names of people who are opposed to this, similarly to the things that you have in the file. Now, the other thing, and this is, I guess, my last point before we make closing argument. There's a letter here from Mount Zion Baptist Association, and this is Harold Ray, Director of Missions, I guess is what it says, for Mount Zion Baptist Association. And I thought this was particularly strong. This was in your file, but it briefly says, the Mount Zion Baptist Association consists of 41 churches, 22,600 members. Request that the ABC Board reject the request of Piero Tramarchi, and Piero's located 320, you know where it is, Craighead County. He, as director of their organization, has been asked to voice their desires on this issue. They represent a lot of people. They have 22.
Bob, are they still in the same place?
And,
Yes.
So that's in the
We
file.
had the
That's on the
distinct
copy I
pleasure,
have.
we had the distinct pleasure about 3 years ago of turning down I believe it was a strip shopping center that wanted to put in a club right next to his organization. So we were very popular people at that point in time.
It changes with the wind.
It's a roller coaster ride we have to take.
And I don't have extra copies of that, but I'd like to include that in evidence. That's all right.
That's all
It's in the
right.
file.
Let me ask you a question, though. Is this the St. Mount Zion Baptist Church that sent a similar letter to elected officials during election year, wanting to know how they stood on this so that they could announce it to their congregations before election day?
I have no idea.
I think it's the St. Mount Zion.
Well, that's certainly,
This will be number 8.
Right, okay.
okay.
That's all I got. I'll sit down and let you guys let it roll.
Okay, does the board have anything else to ask Mr. Shell before we move to closing arguments here? I want to thank everybody for being here all day. I want to thank you for your patience. I want to emphasize too, before we call the vote, as this will be about the third time I've said it, but we're the second part in this process. I know some people feel very aggrieved at the legislative process under which our board has to operate. But ladies and gentlemen, that's the law, and that's the best we've got. It's just the best we have to offer, and I would certainly encourage, as I do anybody, if you don't like the way the law is written, Rules Committee, here's this thing, they handle all the alcohol issues, and Bob and I have sat up there together on many occasions and listened to a lot of this. You can approach your legislator, you can do just about anything if you know, people organize and do what they want, but we are guided by that process. So with that, I will allow you, Mr. Shell, to sum up your reasons why you feel this permit should be granted.
Mr. Ishmael.
Oh, Mr. Ishmael.
You want me to go first?
It's been a long, yes,
Ishmael
we're
go
going,
first?
no, we're going to allow Mr. Ishmael to go first.
May I stand up? Will we be all right?
Pardon, and if we could have, I think we've rehashed a lot of this, so if you'll make these as concise as you can, it would sure help us out.
I think I get the message.
And I'm sorry,
That's
you know,
all right.
it's a little late, so the names are getting, everything's beginning to run together.
First of all, if I may, if this was a numbers game, if this was an election, we wouldn't need this board, would we? So it's not a matter of adding up the numbers and seeing who has the highest number of names on petition. But taking that item, I've gone through all of these letters, I've gone through all these petitions, and if I understand the law in my recent reading, but first time, objections need to say a reason. Hardly any of these do. They came in here at the last and said a little bit about traffic. I think they kind of caught on there and need to talk about traffic. Otherwise, there's not any. Got that out of the way. Now let me say that on the new law, I'm not going to try to interpret it, except to say that it does broaden it. I think that's pretty clear. It broadens the spirit of it. We think this corporation organized by these people, homegrown all the way, is perfectly within the letter of the law, and we believe it is clearly within the spirit of the old law, and now that it's broadened, I don't see how there can be any question about it. The only thing brought up by Mr. Shell here is that we're not quite as tidy in our bookkeeping and our minutes and that sort of thing as he would like. But there was nobody to complain, and there still will not be anybody to complain until this board grants a permit, if you do, and then we need to be careful to do it your way, which we are perfectly willing and eager to do. Now let's go down this list here, and because I think that's what you want to get to. The number of existing alcoholic beverage permits in the proposed area which area is adequately served by existing outlets. We suggest to you that it is not. If you have an opportunity, had an opportunity to look at those letters, everybody is talking downtown. We've got those out on Airport Road. There are different kinds of things. We have the country clubs, we have a couple of nightclubs, we have a hotel. We don't have anything that is a restaurant, particularly whether it's fine dining or not, a restaurant, only a restaurant that can serve alcoholic beverages, and there's nothing downtown. We really need something downtown. It is very important to us. Regardless of how much weight you give to the Hyatt Palmer report, it just makes sense. The type of existing alcoholic beverage permits in the proposed area, there's only one. There's only one kind we want, and frankly, I can't speak for the world, but I think the private club permit is a saving grace to the wet-dry issue in this state, and particularly Craighead County. It is a way for us to have the best of both worlds, which has been said many times. All we want is a permit under the law, and we think that we have it. The suitability of location of proposed outlet, I don't see how there could be anything wrong with that unless you choose to disregard our traffic expert report. We went out and hired somebody who knows the city, who knows about this kind of thing, addressed the restaurant, addressed the proposition of alcohol being served at that restaurant, and the statement was, regardless whether it is dangerous or not, He said it will not be discernible. You will not be able to tell a discernible difference in the traffic as a result of that. I think that is the significant part. The potential impact of proposed outlets on churches, schools in the area. These folks here represent churches, I think, Mount Zion Association and all that. Of the churches in the area, there is not a peep out of a one of them. There is not a word from First Baptist Church, not a word from Central Baptist Church, not a word from First Methodist, not a word from Blessed Sacrament, not a word from the Nazarene Church. None of them have said a word, individually or collectively. Those are the ones that are somewhere nearby. If there's somebody here from First Baptist Church, I assume they'll stand up.
Well, we're
We're
out of it. I've heard about the church association.
Okay. Input from law enforcement officials or other public officials oh, by the way, let me address the school. Blessed Sacrament School is the only school, I mean, you couldn't shoot any other school with a .22 rifle if you could see it. Blessed Sacrament's the only one that's next to the Blessed Sacrament Church, which is, of course, affiliated with St. Bernard's Medical Center. That's the only one that's anywhere close. And haven't heard a word out of them. Now, these ministries he's talking about, you know, I don't know what they are. There's these things, sometimes you see them and you kind of wonder, you don't know who's there. There's one on Union, which would be 2 blocks away. I went by there trying to find somebody, saying, you know, what is this? You know, and I never could find anybody. The Powerhouse thing, which is a youth thing, but they don't classify that as a church. I would have put those down as churches if I could determine that they were, but I can't tell that they are. I don't know what it is. The public officials and law enforcement officials in proposed area. The only relevant law enforcement official in the proposed area is the chief of police. The sheriff knows that he doesn't, I mean, he has jurisdiction there, but they patrol the county outside the city. They serve papers inside the city, and that's all. The chief of police said he did not see any law enforcement problem there, but if there was a proliferation of these permits, there was a lot of them, of course, there could be problems. That is totally irrelevant. This board will be the only one to make a decision on the next one, if there is a next one. And the next one, and there will never be another one like this one. There will never be another one on this date, the only restaurant downtown, the only one that seats only 64, the only one that does not have a bar, the only one in this ratio. There will never be another one like this. The next one you will see brand new, just like you're seeing this one, brand new. And on that point, this board said on Sage Meadows, which was the last one, that you have not reached saturation, and we know that there has been probably, as a matter of fact, one of his witnesses said 60,000 population in Jonesboro, and we know in 1980 it was 31,000. You know, it's easy to look and see what we're talking about here so far as ratios if you want to look at that. I think that might be relevant. So far as adjacent property owners, out of all of this, property owner, business person, individual, or whatever, not a single objection from downtown. Not a one. You're acting like I'm misquoting, am I?
Is Powerhouse does that not count?
Yeah.
I guess Powerhouse does, I suppose.
Do these churches within a half a mile not count?
Yeah.
I think there are some objections. Thank you. That's all right. Go ahead.
I'm not aware of any business downtown. Powerhouse, frankly, I've forgotten about that. Whatever Powerhouse is, a huge thing. Anyway, of all the people who are active in that, we have the support, the Chamber of Commerce, the Jonesboro Central Planning Association, the Downtown Association, all of these people who have a huge investment in it. We think investment and risk counts for that. I have asked to be put into the record here the transcripts of some other clubs. because I'm looking for consistency. I think that there is consistency on this board. And, you know, we don't really have some of the objections that were there before. We don't have an objection that's next door, the church next door. We don't have an objection of residents next door. We don't have any of that sort of thing, like, for example, Outback did. Sage Meadows, the golf club. I don't know any reason why we can't have a restaurant club or an art club as well as an art club. I think it's a fairness matter. You know, why not? There's two features here. One is the private part of the nonprofit club, nonprofit organization, which is for members only, and under the new law that is perfectly acceptable, it's perfectly within the meaning. The next is we want to use this, the city of Jonesboro wants to use this to help us enhance economic development. It's a dual role. So we'd like to have the consistency. We'd like to have the fairness. Ordinarily, I'd be pleading for justice and mercy. This time, I'm pleading for consistency and fairness and an opportunity for Jonesboro to show they can do it right. Please let us have this permit. Thank you.
Mr. Bignall's phone is alive here or something. He keeps turning it off.
Mine of his own.
Thank you, Randy. Next.
Michelle.
Come on, I got a cough drop in my mouth.
Okay, thank you. Try to be brief. I appreciate your attentiveness, and it's been a long day for all of us.
We're gonna get you a coffee cup.
Thank you. You know, we've addressed a lot of things. I've addressed some technical stuff that, you know, it's easy to say, well, so what? Those are technical, but from my standpoint, a lot what. It's, there's laws, and you may not be well versed in corporate law. I'm not well versed in other areas. That is one thing I know quite a bit about. But there are rules, there are laws. And I think they're significant, and that's why I brought them out. And I thought worthy of your recognition, and I appreciate your consideration of those issues. The legislature took a lot of our corporate laws very seriously and enacted them. So to the extent they're applicable here and some of the points that I made, I appreciate your attention to them. And the attention to detail in an organization. You know, for you, it's kind of like trying on shoes. You go try on a pair of shoes. In my experience, if there's just a little problem with a pair of shoes you try on, you better pay attention to it, because it's going to become a big problem if you keep your foot in all day long. If you wear a blister or something like that. All you have to go on is what you've heard in your file. You're seeing a little blip here. Well, maybe that's significant, maybe it's not. But you have to attach significance to the extent that you deem it appropriate. So if some of the little blips that I've given you maybe would indicate there's going to be a disregard of the law or organizational issues with respect to ABC board regulations, and maybe that's something that is worthy of consideration from y'all's standpoint. You know, we addressed every factor and had testimony on most of them. Some of them I didn't consider that relevant. Mr. Ishmael acknowledged that there's no restaurant that does this in Jonesboro. I think we've all acknowledged that Jonesboro is a great place. The people I represent are pleading with you not to get it started. There's a lot of good things going on there, but this is another step. Putting this in a restaurant, yeah, they're serving food with some other places, but it's not quite the same as what you're being asked to do today. You're being asked to go a step further, and a lot of people are asking you not to take that step. You've heard specific information about kids. It troubles me a little bit to hear Mr. Ishmael's disdain for Powerhouse. Man, I applaud an organization that gives alternatives to kids, and that's troubling a little bit to me, to be frank. I think he has stooped a little bit to some mischaracterizations, and I thank you all for recognizing recognizing that on certain issues. He said he hadn't heard from any churches in that area. I'm not gonna ask for people to give testimony, but if you're here and you're from a church in this area,
Objection.
and
This is evidence he's trying to put
Well,
in.
all I'm gonna do is ask them to stand up.
I think
He
we've got a
might have-
good sense that there's a lot of church people out here, and I appreciate that. I think the board does, but would be putting something new in, and we're in summation, Mr. Shell. So, but I know we've had ministers out here, and I know there's a lot of good folks out here.
Well, with him saying nobody had done that, I really, that was a strong
okay.
statement. That's why I felt like it might be appropriate to, because it was a gross mischaracterization. And his disregard of some of these organizations, frankly, is troubling to me. Well, I won't address that anymore. The kids, the traffic issues, you've heard two different opinions on that. You have to make a decision, and it's hard to know. But there are kids in this area, and there's going to be some overlap times. Obviously, there's been some wrecks in this area, and so alcohol certainly won't make that an easier situation, but that's something that you need to address. He also mentioned that numbers don't really make a difference, but I submit to you that every name on every petition that you've got represents a person that has a feeling about this strong enough to put their name down on it. And you could say, well, numbers aren't critical or anything, but every one of those numbers on the list that we did represent a person who took a stand. And that's the beauty of the society we live in. We can take a stand. They may not all have come today, thankfully they didn't, but they all took the time to sign a petition and say, at least I'm making my statement. And so I think the large number of opposition there has some significance. Lastly, just the issue, and I'll close on this, is the attention to following detail in their own organization. I think is a very pertinent factor that you should consider if you consider whether it applies, because they're going to have a lot of detail from your regulations to continue to abide by if you grant this petition.
Thank you, Mr. Shell. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again, but hearing no further testimony in the case of Piero's, South Main, and Jonesboro, used by the director on February 29th, I will entertain a motion.
I've got a couple of things I want to make sure. I don't know which way this is going, but I want to make sure that it's covered. As Mr. Shell agreed, and Mr. Hickman agreed, you're being called upon probably for the first time in a serious and statistic case to express to the record or express to the court or express to somebody your interpretation of Act 1813 of 2020. And so I want you to take the time, I want you to look at what the legislature's done, and I need you to tell me, whoever makes a motion, I don't care who makes a motion, but I need somebody that makes a motion to tell me what you think Act 1813 2003 means to you. If this act had not been passed, if Chili's, Jonesboro, and Parkway were still the only thing we have to look at is this application to be. But this act was passed after the Chili's case was announced by the Arkansas Court of Appeals. And so this has to be considered, and it has to mean something to somebody, somewhere. I want you to look, and whoever makes a motion, tell us what this means or doesn't mean to you. I commend to you the bottom of page 2 of the act that I gave to you. I commend to you the top of page 3 of the act. Mr. Shell was talking about the stuff that's at the bottom of page 2 about conventions and meetings and restaurants and entertainment facilities. But at the same time, I don't want you to be blindsided and forget to look at the top of page 3 where it talks about most communities have individuals who associate for this, this, and this. And it reads about exactly the same as it does at the bottom of page 2. So somebody needs to tell me what this does or does not mean. I also do not want any holes in the record about the issues that Mr. Shell has made about your own regulations and your interpretation of your own regulations. We've had this thing going back and forth about you got to do this, when you apply for the permit. If you get the permit, then you got to start doing this stuff, and if it's before the permit, then you don't. I need to know, if our reading, staff's reading 13 some years of dog, which was your most recent expression, says that you only have to submit 17 minutes for each month from the 12 months preceding date of application. So that's what it says to staff. I need to make sure it still says the same thing, you know, well, regulation, interpretation. The last thing, if this goes up on appeal, then the test is going to be substantial evidence. And as Mr. Ishmael says, and as I've been whipped around the court many times on this, you know, it's not the number of people, it's the reasons that they give. And I just need somebody to articulate something, you know, other than say, X sent a letter, and because X sent the letter, I'm against it. Because that's going to be a loser for me every time. But if you can tell me what X's letter said to you, and what this you got from that, what that leads you to believe, we're going to be okay. That's all I want.
You need
I need
those things as part of a motion.
I need, in the Administrative Procedure Act, they're called findings of fact. Findings of fact is what you have heard and what it makes you believe. You know, you heard that X, Y, and Z say this about the application. All right, what does that make you believe? What does that make you feel will happen? You know, as a result of having heard this testimony, seen this exhibit, been shown this book, been shown this new law. It's got to mean something to you other than, you know, he said he's against it, therefore I'm against it. Well, what is it he said that made you come to the conclusion I'm either for it or against it, whatever the case might be? There's two things that have got to be satisfied under the Administrative Procedure Act, and that's findings of fact, which is the hardest thing to do. That's the part you're going to be wrestling with when you come and make your motion. What are the facts that I believe are going to be true as a result of all this stuff? You can choose. You can pick Mr. Ishmael's side, you can pick Mr. Shell's side, because you've got to believe one side or the other. And then you've got to build a foundation of why you believe that. That's your findings of fact. The conclusions of law is the easiest part of all. Ironically, the conclusions of law is Arkansas Code annotated 3-9-222 sub F is in front. Is it qualified to be received, and is it in the overall public interest, or is it in the public?
Can you?
That's the easiest part. It either is or it isn't.
Can we have can the board can somebody make a separate motion that it is our interpretation that this law allows this to happen, allows what we're talking about, separately from the motion regarding this case?
I guess, yeah. I mean, you could say the law allows X and Y, but based on the facts of this application, we don't believe X and Y have been bad. Yeah, you can do that. I mean, that goes back to your findings of fact. I just need something with some meat on it. You know, the classic legislative thing, Mr. Chairman Porter, since you're in the legislature, I know you've heard it before, and I've heard it before, so I'm afraid you're against it, I'm afraid. I just need some more meat than that.
Well, I certainly, as a separate motion, would be willing personally to make a motion that I find this legislative bill that became Act 1813 of 2003 to mean that private clubs can be granted by this board for the basis of hospitality based on the definition that they gave in the both sections of this, with restaurants meaning, and the way they seem to define it pretty clearly, restaurants, conventions, and convention facilities. I always take a facility to mean an actual place that, you know, I find we are perfectly perfectly within the law and the scope of what we do here to make a determination on this particular case based on what the legislature passed.
Okay.
I'll make that motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Now we come back to the motion for this application.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to let somebody else make that motion.
Okay, I'm just keeping it straight procedural, that's all I'm doing.
Okay. Do I hear a motion? Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion. Mr. Mr. Ellis?
Let me say, I've been looking down a lot, I've been taking notes.
You keep pretty copious notes.
Lots of times after I write them, I can't read them. But I think that both sides have made an excellent presentations, and I want to commend both of them. Mr. Shell, I thought did a fantastic job. He had several good reasons. Some of them I never quite heard of or thought about. And it's just like you said a while ago, fitting on your shoes and set the field. It's good. It's good. But we are sitting here. We're sitting here with a hard decision. Legal made it a little bit harder on someone who's not a lawyer. But we had a lot of public officials against this. State Representative Gibbons, his testimony, what he said, a lot of wishes of the people that this permit not be granted. Then you had the Chief of Police, his testimony, feeling that he opened up the permit in this area, then it was going to open up the floodgates to other permits, and then parking was talked about. Law enforcement would be a major concern, and that law enforcement maybe wouldn't be adequate. Well, it would be adequate, is what he said, excuse me. But there was concerns about the traffic. The sheriff, his testimony, the prosecutor's testimony, the prosecutor attorney's letters, pay of police, chief of police, and I think even the mayor wrote letters in opposition. Churches, there was 7 in the close proximity, but actually there wasn't any in the limits that within the limits that we see a lot of times, particularly here in Blue Rock and other bigger areas. Reverend Davis, I thought, gave an excellent testimony, and it characterized his concerns. Also mentioned what he thought about the character of the applicant himself. County Judge Dale Haas expressed his concerns, and the sheriff, he did too, and mentioned the phone calls he had received, along with letters and petitions against this. And he also had some letters from public officials, which I thought was good. Then you gave some concerns about the new law and how you believe it would not benefit the community. Purpose is not in line with what the law dictates as far as new private clubs. Concerns about the membership committee, the meetings, membership meetings, the organizations that are not qualified due to our regulations, but accepted by our legal and our director, bylaws concerns, board meeting requirements, record of meetings, data bylaws, all these factors. But what I believe is that all these things that you brought up is regulations that we see before the permit, not, I mean, prior to the permit, and that's before we look at it, you know, and that's after the permit's granted. Saying all those things, and I feel like that, again, good presentation, and by far, this is not easy thing for me to do. I look at the other side. We've made just a motion where we understand Act 1813 Mr. Bennett's explanation of the legislation language. I feel like the manager is a good applicant. He's in a good building, a lot better than we see in many other places. He's qualified. There's a lot of signatures in favor of this, even though I know there's a lot against it. He has gone exactly by the law in obtaining this private club. There is many in support of the law, of the club. There's only 12 private clubs in Craig in operation at the present time. The population growth has really increased through the years since the last time we issued a permit. It's expected to even grow this year. Then the Peters Associates, their report, they indicated maybe there wasn't that big of a traffic problem than what I've seen from the opposing side. I mentioned that the speed limit is only 25 miles an hour and there's speed bumps, and understand speed bumps. There's bigger ones and smaller ones, because I got them up and down my street. But the Peters Associates also said that this was pedestrian friendly area. It felt like this was a quality restaurant, and it's small. Applicants lived in the Jonesboro area for 12 years. The hours they want to stay open is very consistent and really a lot better than we see most of the time. So the hours they're staying open, I feel like there's no problem. The applicant has really been in nonprofit deals. He's supported students. He's been very involved in the Millennium Farm. But you know, brown bagging is going on right now at the present time. So there's drinking that is happening there. And the state really has no control over this. Where this way we will have some control over it. We have what they call it a good neighbor policy. I don't know if you've heard of this, Mr. Shell, but if there begins to be problems within the area, all you gotta do is call the ABC. We're gonna send up enforcement. Without just doing brown bagging, we don't have that option. There is control that will be over this if this is granted. Applicant hopefully is going to be starting a scholarship program in culinary arts, and I think that's commendable. We don't see that in a lot of these private clubs. They have taken the AV seminar, and he wants to go a step ahead and make sure that all those that does work in the private club, including his wife, I believe, they want to take the seminar down here and other courses involved in serving alcohol. The family is very involved in community affairs and fundraisers. A letter from Michael Johnson, that was another side, excuse me. I'm sorry. Then President Shaw from downtown, which comprises about 100 members. They are supporting the High Clabon report, which that includes the Chamber of Commerce, Arkansas University, ASU that is, the Jonesboro Planning Association, financial institutions in Jonesboro, and private investors. And I know those are a lot of the people that are involved in a lot of things. It has many good things to do with what the growth and things that happens in the Jonesboro area. But in this report, it also includes restaurants, and I think that was important. The Chamber of Commerce, which is 1,500 members, they were supportive from this restaurant. The city council took no position on this permit. Scott Davis's report I thought was very good, showing projections and what all is going on in this immediate area. Woody Freeman in his testimony, and I might say that I've been traveling around the country quite a bit, and I haven't been in the place, but I promise you it's a lot better than some of those homes that churches chicken and a lot of those places. But buffets, I hate buffets. There's a buffet there. It's ranked the top three.
Mr. Ellis? We were talking about buffets.
Yeah, and there's a buffet there, H, you know, and, you know, I hate buffets, you know. He's rated a lot more than that. That report, I think, is not in conflict. It's really not right. But there was a lot of letters from companies that people and their companies in support of this. And there was no objections. I think this was important. There was objections from the churches. There was objections, you know, from the schools. But the other side of this, I mean, the side of this is that I didn't hear any opposition from any of the retail businesses in the area. I thought that was pretty good. But quite honestly, this application is one of the best and cleanest since I've been on the board, which I'm on almost 12 years now, that I've seen through all these years. And I certainly think that it would be in the public's interest, and these leads me to believe that it would be in the public's interest. And for those reasons, I'd like to overturn this decision and grant this permit.
So Mr. Ellis, as our esteemed attorney had said, you think these are findings of facts that all of the things that you read support overturning the director's decision? That is correct.
And qualified to be received.
Qualified to be received.
I'll second.
Okay, we've had a motion and a second that the director's decision be overturned and the permit granted. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chairman votes no. By a vote of 4-1, the director's decision is overturned and the permit granted. Now, I appreciate you didn't do that. What I do want to say to you is these things always are hard on a community. I think you've seen what happened here. But this permit, folks from Piero's, is a privilege. It's not a right. It can go away just as quickly as it came. I would encourage you to do your best to work with your neighbors and run a real good operation there. Make the state of Arkansas proud to take your tax money and do a good job.
Thank you. We'll make you proud.